Okay. Okay. So now that we understood the need of security, right? So different types of threats, different types of attack. We also have seen how we can safeguard our infrastructure. We also gone through the safe architecture as well, security architecture for enterprises, right? So we know that there are variety of devices available within to be placed in your organization to secure your infrastructure. We are very sure about it. Now, what is a security device? That is what your firewall is a security device or not? It is a security device. How about your IPS? Is that a security device or not? Yes, it is a security device, right? So there are certain requirements, there are certain expectations for a device to be called as a security device. That's what our focus is all about. So basically, what is that security device is all about? It's a security device. A firewall is a security device. What it does, it helps to filter out the unwanted traffic passing through it. Am I right? So firewall is a security device with which you will be able to do the filtering, but based on what the filtering is going to happen defines the type of firewall filtering technology. Am I right? So firewall is a security device, and this is going to be considered as the first line of defense. As a perimeter security, we will keep our firewall at the perimeter to screen and filter out the unwanted traffic which is entering into your network as well as it is leaving your network. That's where the border security. We have this as a border security, right? So we call this as a first line on defense, where we do the actual filtering and we will permit only the genuine traffic which we believe, and then the permitted traffic have to undergo some deep packet inspection. That is where the IPS comes into picture. We call that as a second line of defense. Which one? IPS. Anyway, so firewall is a security device and it is being considered as a first line of defense, and these firewalls can be software based or can also be hardware based. Basically, you need to have a hardware as well as a software. Without that, we cannot call any device as a security device. If you have a PC without an operating system, what's the point? You have an operating system in CD but you don't have a hardware, what is the point? So you need to have both of them, right? But basically what we are trying to say, if you are using a specialized hardware, then we call it as a hardware firewall. If you don't have a specialized hardware, it can be used in any of the general purpose hardware, and we call it as a software based firewall. Okay, can you please give some examples for software based firewall and a hardware based firewall? Sorry, how you're saying that it's software? Don't we have a hardware for WAF? Okay. Okay. In Linux, you have IP filter, right? Is that a firewall or not? IP table. Yeah, IP tables. Is that a firewall or not? Okay. You can make that IP tables as to protect a single host, as we have a Bitdefender or personal firewalls on your machine. But you can also harden the operating system. You can also customize the operating system to act like a firewall to protect your network also. You understand what you can also call Checkpoint as a software firewall if you are running it on an open server. You have software firewalls, you also have a hardware firewalls. When I'm saying hardware firewall, I'm talking about a specialized hardware. On top of that, that firewall application is running, right? You understand what I'm saying? How about ASA? Is that a software firewall or a hardware firewall? Okay. How about Firepower? ASA Firepower. I'm not sure how many of you know about it, but still I'm just asking this question. Firepower is a hardware firewall, it's a software firewall. You have the combination of both. Means what I mean to say, you can have ASA firepower means firepower threat defense system as a hardware firewall, or the firepower services alone can be a software as a service, right? We calling it as same way. ASA is going to be the operating system running on a hardware, but you can be benefited by the source fire services by having the software running on this hardware. You can have a software based, you can also have a hardware based firewall. Is that clear? It is a hardware firewall. See, whenever you say a firewall, it's a software. If that software is running on a specialized hardware, we call it as a hardware firewall. Okay, is that a specialized hardware? Then obviously it is not a hardware firewall, it's a virtual firewall. That's a different category altogether. Right? So every OEM, they come up with hardware based one, virtualization and cloud based firewall. You take any product, you take Palo Alto, what are all the versions you have? I hear that many of you guys are working with Palo Alto. What are all the versions of firewalls you have? VM firewall is there. Do we have virtual edition of hardware is there? Virtual edition is there. We also have cloud based version. Am I right or not? Right? So I'm talking only from the software versus hardware perspective. I'm not talking about the cloud based firewall or virtual firewall. I'm talking about software firewall and hardware firewall. You have a dedicated hardware, a specialized hardware. If that is being used for doing the filtering, then it is called as a hardware firewall. If it's a software firewall, it's a software. So basically all of your personal firewalls are a software firewalls. What is that, a personal firewall? It is a host based firewall. It is used to protect an individual device. Now you enable a firewall on Windows machine. Is a firewall or not? Yes, it is. Am I right or not? It is a software based firewall. You don't have a specialized hardware for running that application. At the same time, it is used to protect an individual host. That's why we call it as a host based firewall. If the firewall is used to protect a network, then we call it as a network based firewall. Think about your ASA. Is that network based firewall or a host based firewall? It's a network based firewall. It's a hardware firewall or a software firewall? It's a hardware firewall. Okay? Is that clear or any clarification is required here? Good. Now, see, whenever we say a device as a security device, there are certain basic requirements. If these requirements are met, only then those devices can be called as a security device. Any device, you take any device, if it meets all these things, then we can call it as a security device. Whether it is a firewall or any security device, there are certain basic requirements. Like if you say a human being, there are certain basic identification techniques, right? So how a human being will look like. If all those parameters are matching, only then we can call him as a human. If not, he is not a human. Same way, if you have a device and the device is addressing all these basic requirements, then only that device can be called as a security device. The first and foremost basic requirement is layer 2, layer 3 forwarding. What do you mean by that? See, as the traffic is being received on one of the interface, it should be forwarded out via the other interface. While the forwardings are happening, based on what the forwarding decisions are going to be made, maybe based on the layer 2 header or based on the layer 3 header. If the forwarding decisions are made based on the layer 2 header, then we call it as a layer 2 security device. If the forwarding decisions are made based on the layer 3 header, we call it as a layer 3 device or layer 3 security device. Is that clear? Okay, now one more point here. Your ASA firewall can be positioned in layer 2 mode or in layer 3 mode. How about Palo Alto firewall? Yes. So, but here you cannot keep couple of interfaces in layer 2 mode and couple of interfaces in layer 3 mode. It's not possible here. Okay. Either you keep the firewall as a layer 2 device or layer 3 device. If the firewall is being kept in layer 2 mode, then it is called as a transparent mode firewall. We have a dedicated section for discussing that. Right? So, transparent mode firewall. Of course, the forwarding decision is going to happen based on the layer 2 header. If the firewall is kept in layer 3 mode, it is called as a routed mode firewall. Okay. Now, the forwarding decision will happen based on the layer 3 header. So, if the firewall is kept in layer 3 mode, every interface needs to be configured with an IP address. So, based on that, the routing table can be initialized. You remember yesterday we had a discussion, a small topology of 3 routers and 2 PCs, and we have seen ping results. You remember that? We also understood how the routing table is going to be initialized and how the routing table can be populated with. So, we have seen some static routing concepts over there. So, if it is a layer 3 device, it has to initialize the routing table. To initialize the routing table, you need to configure the IP addresses for interfaces. Without configuring the interfaces, that interface cannot be used for making the forwarding decision. So, if it is in layer 2 mode, it populates a layer 2 forwarding table by learning the MAC address. Yes, it is possible. Then it has to do some sort of basic filtering as well. Basic filtering in the sense what? Because it is a security device, it has to do some sort of filtering. The moment I say basic filtering, try to understand that there are some other filtering techniques are also there. There are multiple filtering techniques. We should be in a position to differentiate the various filtering techniques. Okay, so here we will be focusing on the different types of firewall filtering technologies. We will see that as we move forward in this presentation. So, the first basic 2 requirements are what? Layer 2, layer 3 forwarding, basic filtering, and then the third basic requirement is address translation. What is that address translation? We are talking about the network address translation. So, because internally we will be using the private addresses, external communication, we may need to translate that address from one to another. For that, we need this address translation. So, a security device should also be in a position to do this address translation. Fourth requirement is VPN. So, it should be in a position to terminate the VPN tunnels on it. So, these are all the 4 basic requirements. We will see them one by one. Like here, forwarding. Layer 2, layer 3 forwarding, I told you, right? Transparent mode and routed mode without compromising the filtering. The filtering functionality should be there. At the same time, the firewall needs to forward the traffic from one interface to another interface based on the layer 2 header or based on the layer 3 header. Okay. Now, so how the layer 3 forwarding table is going to be populated, or how the layer 2 forwarding table is going to be populated? Most of the time, layer 2 forwarding tables are going to be dynamic. Is there is any way that static entries can be made on the layer 2 forwarding table? Yes, you can do that. The same way, when it comes to layer 3 forwarding table, first of all, the routing table needs to be initialized, that we have seen by configuring an interface with an IP address, and enabling that interface will initialize the routing table, and further any entries are required that can be statically added, and we can also take the help of dynamic routing protocols to populate the routing table of your layer 3 device. Right? So, we can populate the routing table with directly connected entries, static routes, dynamic routes, and also using a default route. Okay? Basic filtering, as I said earlier, the filtering, so we have various types of filtering. The basic filtering, which is talking about, what is that called? Packet filters. What is that packet filter? Your access control list is called as a packet filter. Am I right? What is a packet filter? Based on a layer 3 header information, the filtering is going to be happening, and that is what we call it as a packet filters. Okay. So, how that packet filtering is going to be filtering the traffic? Based on the source IP, destination IP, a little bit of layer 4 information like the protocol and the destination port, source port. Based on this, the traffic can be identified and the traffic can also be filtered. I don't know, somebody is trying to join. Is there any difficulty in joining into the meetings or something like that? Jashwant? I think he's keep disconnecting. Again, two connections are there from Jashwant. Jashwant, you connected from two devices? I don't know. I'm seeing two. It's okay. Probably it might be taken out. Maybe. Okay. So the packet filtering is one of the fastest filtering technologies ever as of now. Okay. So since it is going to be looking into the source destination IPs protocol, what is that protocol section here? See, basically every protocol is going to be identified through the help of a number. When I say protocol 6, what protocol I'm trying to identify? Okay, what will be the protocol number for UDP? 17. Oh, that's what. For ESP and AH you have, what is the port number for ICMP? How about IP? How about OSPF, EIGRP? Super. Fantastic. Yeah. ESP and AH 50-51, right? ICMP is 1, IP is 4. 4, that's all. 4. IP is 4. IP packet is identified via 4. Protocol number 6 is TCP. You remember that? Just now we have been discussing that. Okay. So every protocol is going to be identified by a number while you are writing a packet filter. Even if you write TCP, like if you are identifying the services through the help of the name of the service, like HTTP. HTTP is going to be identified by the port number what? TCP 80. Okay. So basic filtering is going to be happening based on the layer 3 and layer 4 header information. This is more faster, but is that granular? What is the negative side of a packet filtering technology? I'm sorry? Okay, I agree that. How you are saying that it won't inspect the packet? Without inspection, how the packet can be permitted or denied? That. Oh. Agreed. That is also kind of an. You're talking about the inspect feature of your Cisco. I'm not talking about it. I'm generally asking inspect. Inspect is nothing but for inspecting the traffic based on certain parameters. Correct? Inspect is a feature within your Cisco. I'm not talking about it. Inspection can be based on anything. The filtering is going to happen based on something. Here in case of packet filter, it's layer 3 header or layer 4, layer 3 and layer 4 header. So the first important thing that you need to remember with as a negative point with respect to packet filter, it does not maintain the state of a connection. Okay, what is the state? How do you define it? Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? That is one of the good example. What is that called? Reply packet. See, basically any digital communication is going to be a request and response. Somebody is going to be asking something and somebody will be responding. The requested data is going to be given, right? From an individual perspective, the client is trying to send some traffic to the server. It is considered as a flow. You understand? Same way, the server is responding back for the request. That will also be considered as a flow. See, unidirectional traffic is considered as a flow. If the flows, what we are sending and receiving, is related to each other, then we call it as a session or a state. For example, if I'm asking what is the time now and the reply is coming back, I am Prashant, is that related to each other? I don't know whether Prashant will answer like that, but I'm just giving you an example. Okay. I'm sorry? You can say like that. But the point here I'm trying to say, there are two flows on each direction. They are related to each other. We call it as a state. The packet filtering technology will not maintain this information. That is one. Again, one more point with respect to the state is, every communication cannot be completed by sending a single packet. There will be multiple packets. Even the request require multiple packets, the response require multiple packets. With the help of this packet filtering, even though you can filter the traffic, but even though the received packet is part of the existing connection, already this packet has been verified, but the next packet also needs to individually pass through by the rules, permitted by the rules. I don't remember the received packet has been inspected already, or something like the received packet is the packet of the previously permitted packet. I don't store that information also. So state information is nothing but maintaining the state of a connection, which is nothing but related flows, and also the consecutive packets of the same connection. Those informations cannot be maintained by a packet filtering firewall. You understand that? Any questions on that? Is that clear or not? Okay. Second negativity or the second disadvantage of using packet filtering technology, some sophisticated attacks cannot be filtered with a packet filter. What do you mean by that? Okay. For example, let's take that. Let's take a fragmentation attack. Okay. I'm just going to the whiteboard. What is a fragment? What is a fragment? Anybody? Okay. So let's say that I have a router and then we also have a PC like this. Okay. Now the client is sending a packet. So client might be having a lot of information. A might be having a lot of information to be transmitted, but it may not be in a position to transmit everything at once because we have certain limitations with respect to a size of a frame. What is the genuine frame size? According to, forget about your jumbo frames and all. According to the RFC, what is the genuine frame size? 1500. This is the maximum, right? Is that including your layer 2 header or excluding layer 2 header? Sorry? It's excluding, It's excluding. 1518 is the layer 2 MTU. We say that. Anyway, fine. What is the minimum size? What is the minimum size of a frame? Genuine frame? Because most of the books 60. Okay, anyway. Oh, sorry, it's not 60, 64. Now the point is, anything, 1 minute, anything less than 64 byte is also considered as an error. Anything greater than 1500 byte is also considered as an error. Anything greater than 1500, we call it as what? Giant. Of course, we have jumbo. That's depending on the size. We have 3 sizes of giant frames. That's a different story. Anything less than 64, what it is named as? When you give show interfaces command on your Cisco routers, you will see all this information. Anything less than 64 byte is called as a runt. Okay, fine. So when system A wanted to transmit, not all the data can be sent in single packet. So it is going to be slicing the data units into small chunks so that it can be considered as a valid data unit as it is traveling through the network. Correct? Now the point is, now this guy is sending some 10 packets. Okay. Now this packet comes to the intermediary devices, a switch or a router or a firewall, anything. Now he has to forward the packet as such, but for any reason, there are so many reasons. One of the reason, as you guys said, the MTU limitation, he will not be able to send the packet as it has been received. Now this guy will further slice that packet into small chunks, which is called as a fragment. Am I right? Or any discussion is required on this? Okay. Now these fragments are going to be reassembled at the receiving station. Now how the receiving station would know that the received fragment is a chunk of this packet? So packet number 5 has been sliced into 3 small fragments. Now how come this receiver knows that these 3 fragments are part of fragment number 5? Sorry, packet number 5. How come the receiver knows it? Sequence number will be given for the packets, not for the fragments. Am I right? Okay. Now based on the sequence number, they can say that these are all the 3 fragments which are part of the packet number 5. Okay, agreed. Which fragment needs to be assembled first, which one is second, and which one is third? When he has sliced this information, see, when 10 packets are sent to the receiver needs to reassemble the packets in the same order to get the data as it has been sent. Correct? Same way, when the packet has been sliced into 3 small pieces, what we call it as a fragment, those fragments also need to be reassembled in that specific order to get the packet number 5. Am I right or not? Okay. Now how that identification of those fragments will happen? That's where the fragment IDs will be there. So sequence number of the packet plus the fragment ID will help the receiving station to reassemble the fragments to packets and then the fragments to the actual data. Sorry, reassemble the fragments to packet and the packet to the data. Is that clear? Now what's the complication in this? It's very simple to do the fragmentation, but is there any attack which is specific to this? There are couple of attacks. I'm just trying to explain you something. Now these fragments will have headers or not? Fragment number 1, sequence number 5, fragment number 2 and fragment number 3. Do they have the headers or not? Okay. Now the headers are going to be identical, right? The headers are going to be identical. The sequence number will be 5. Only the fragment ID will be different. Now, see, the packet filter, when it receives a fragment, it will check the first fragment. If that first fragment is allowed, the rest of the associated fragments will also be allowed. That's how the packet filter works. So what an attacker can do is intentionally he can construct the fragments, right, and then he can send it to the target machine. If you have a packet filter, only the first fragment will be verified. If the condition according to the rules, if the first fragment is allowed, the rest of the fragments associated as part of the same packet will also be permitted. It is equivalent to when you are trying to go and visit one of the office where you are not working, you will be entering yourself as visitor in a visitor ledger. You will give your detail, your phone number, to whom you are meeting, from where you are coming. All this information will be recorded. In some of the offices, if more than one person is visiting together, I'll say that Gopi's details will be recorded plus 1 is going to be added. Now, if there is any inspection is going on, any details of that plus 1 is collected, what is his name? No, I don't know. Where is he coming from? Is he coming from the same home or same city? Maybe different. So what happens, because Gopi is allowed, the rest of the people are also allowed. He is claiming that he is coming with me. Okay, now the packet filter will investigate or filter the first fragment based on the rules. If the first fragment is allowed, the rest of the fragments are also allowed. My point here is, while the reassembly is going on, they are going to be manipulating the fragment offset field. What is that fragment offset field? See, when these fragments are being reassembled, which header will be considered? The first fragment's header is going to be considered, right? Now the second, third, fourth headers are not going to be considered at all. Only the data unit is going to be merged. My point is, there is a field which is called as offset. By using or manipulating the offset field, any of the headers can also be used to override the first fragment's header as it is getting reassembled. I'm just giving only the brief information. Okay, now because of that, while the fragments have been constructed by the attackers, they may say that the first fragment is meant for TCP/80 and the second fragment may have, not any other fragment may have, that it is meant for TCP/23. So according to the packet filter, it assumed that the received data is meant for TCP/80. It had a rule to permit the traffic. Once the traffic has been permitted and it gets reassembled on the server side, because of the offset field which is available, by manipulating that offset field, this header information, layer 4 header, can be used to override the original first fragment header. After it got reassembled, it could be seen as a different application altogether. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is that clear? Or any questions are there? Okay, only in 2 situations there won't be any questions inside a class. You know what those 2 situations, right? Okay. So like this, some sophisticated attacks cannot be filtered with the help of packet filtering. But it is it is one of the finest, we can say it's the fastest filtering technology ever. But it is not that efficient. So as you see, some protective mechanisms are being introduced. Attackers are always coming up with some exploitation techniques. They will come up. They will also enhance as the security mechanisms coming up. They will also come up with some other technique through which the technology can be compromised, right? So we need to have a better protection mechanism or better filtering technology in place. So what we have to do is, we are just going to be talking about the second filtering technology, which is called a proxy filtering or a proxy firewall. So basic filtering technology, we were talking about packet filters. Now we are moving on with proxy filtering. What is a proxy filtering? Okay, again, I'm just going back to my whiteboard. I just wanted to call upon one of the politician in India. Of course, he was an ex-MP, member of parliament. I'm just calling him because one of the incident was quite interesting for me. Okay, so other than that, there is no relationship between me and him. Okay, now the point is, let's say that there is one politician. Okay, I don't want to name him. There is a politician, because I'm recording, I'm not supposed to say anything about that. Okay, so I have a politician who's part of Tamil Nadu and he speaks only Tamil. You don't understand Hindi, he don't understand English. He was part of the ministry team. Is part of ministry in central ministry. He was NP. He was part of I think it's fertilizer. He was part of it. He was taking care of fertilizer thing. Now, so he don't understand any other language. While he was traveling to Australia, there was an interview taken against him. What is the purpose of your visit to Australia? He said that I just wanted to go and understand how this fertilizers are being managed in Australia, and then I'm just trying to implement. I'll come back and try to implement the same here in a manner which will work for our country. That's what the explanation given. Now the point is, this minister don't understand English. Of course, he don't understand Hindi as well. Now we have an Australian minister who is taking care of the same department over there. Okay. Now, how these people would have communicated with each other? Okay. Now the translator comes into picture who can understand Tamil as well as English. Am I right? Now, any communication between our MP, our minister, and Australian minister cannot go directly. It will go only via the translator. Now, any request coming from our minister will go to the translator. Now, the translator will receive this information in a language our minister speaks, which is called as Tamil. He understands it, and he is not going to be simply translating every word to the Australian minister. That is not the way a translator will work. Translator should also be diplomatic, as well as he has to translate the information, not the word, in a presentable manner. You understand what I'm saying? If not, it might have created a war between India and Australia, because the communication plays a very vital role, right? So I don't want to give any other information about the other minister, but anyway, the Australian minister, see, the Australian language is very difficult. Australia and New Zealand accent is very difficult from my perspective. Probably it might be easy for you, but it is very difficult for me. But the point is, when this Australian minister is responding for the request, or he is trying to raise a question, it will be given to the translator. Now the translator should receive that information, and he has to remove all unwanted data, unwanted words, and he will translate that information into a pleasant, presentable manner to our minister, so that the communication, the meeting would go smooth. Right? So this is what the role of a translator. Now think about the translator's role as a proxy. Now the client and server, they cannot communicate directly between each other. Any communication from client, it will go to the proxy, then the proxy will filter the traffic based on the configured values or configured filtering conditions, and then it will modify the data in such a way that it is originating from that proxy, then it can be given to the server. Now let's say the client is asking who is Google. Okay, the client is asking for the Google's IP address. Now what will happen? The proxy will say, I am Google, what do you want? Now from client's perspective, who is Google? Proxy is Google. Now the destination IP will be the IP address of the proxy, not the IP address of the original server. Because of that, all data received from this client is readable, openable. All the headers can be opened, all the data is readable by the proxy. Because of that, any level you would like to implement the filtering, you can do it. Then the request can be modified in such a way that it is originated from the proxy going to the original google.com server. Now Google sees that the request is coming from this IP, so obviously he will respond back to that IP. Now the proxy receives that response, and he can do the filtering according to the filtering conditions, and then it gets translated and considers that it is a response coming from the proxy to the client. This is how the communication is going to be happening through the proxy. Because of all the layers are visible, the filtering can happen at any of the layers, even on the PDU. So the filtering is more granular, more efficient, but this is going to be causing a lot of delay. Like what? If the communication is going to happen between the client and server directly, whatever the data is encapsulated here, that gets decapsulated here. Whatever the data encapsulated here, that gets decapsulated by the client. That's how the communication. Now in this case, any data is being encapsulated by the client will be decapsulated, read, understood, and then re-encapsulated. Then it will be forwarded to the server. He will decapsulate it. When it comes to the response, it will get encapsulated over there, then decapsulate it here, re-encapsulate it, and then finally it gets decapsulated by the client. So additionally, 2 encapsulation and 2 decapsulations are going to be happening, and because all the headers are going to be screened, you can expect a noticeable delay. I'm just talking about the plain the old proxy. I'm not talking about the current new proxy technologies like Barracuda or Blue Coat. So they are way efficient. Now, I'm just talking about the plain old proxy. Now, the proxy is more granular, but it is adding up a lot of delay. Any application which is very sensitive to this delay cannot operate properly. The connections are going to be intermittent, right? And any application which is considered as a static application can be proxied. Again, I'm talking about the plain old proxy, not the new generation proxies. So, what do you mean by static applications? Any application is being statically identified by a port number. Is there any application which can pick up a port number dynamically? Any application? You remember? Okay. FTP can operate in two different modes, right? Active versus passive. What is the active mode FTP port numbers? Can somebody please tell me that? Active mode FTP port numbers? Only one port number? Okay. Please be sure that along with the protocol also needs to be mentioned TCP 21 and TCP 20. 21 is being considered as the control connection, 20 is being considered as the data connection. How about the passive mode FTP? Passive mode FTP, what is the port numbers? Okay. Still the control connection is TCP 21, but the data connection is going to be a dynamic. Same way, voice over IP. What is the port numbers? It's a dynamic port number between 16,000 and odd and 31,000 and odd. Give me a minute. I got disconnected. Hello, am I audible? Okay, I got disconnected from the internet because of the power cut. We just switched over to a different connection altogether. Okay, so was that clear? The active mode, passive mode FTP port numbers, and what is the port number will be used by the IP phones within your organization or any organization. They will pick up a set of port number, a pair of port numbers. Those are dynamically chosen. If that is the case, your proxy firewall may not be in a position to filter the traffic or identify the application. So the proxy was having certain limitation. I'm not talking about the current proxy. I'm talking about the old proxies. Okay. So that's what the limitation with proxy. So packet filtering is faster but not efficient, whereas the proxy firewall is efficient, more granular, but it is not faster. So we need to have a mechanism which could address both the requirement. What is that? Both the limitation. What is that? It should be faster and it should also be efficient. That's where we are coming up with stateful inspection firewall or stateful firewall inspection. Actually, stateful firewall inspection has been developed and patented by Checkpoint. We had this discussion yesterday. Yes, correct. So what is a stateful inspection firewall? Now we know what is a state, correct? We will see that as we start working on the product, how the state table can be verified, what are all the elements of state table. We will see all those things as we move forward on the labs part. Anyway, what is a stateful inspection? Basic filtering, the packet filtering firewalls will not maintain the state of a connection, am I right? Whereas stateful inspection firewalls will maintain the state of a connection. Of course, it is also operating at layer 3 and 4. At the same time, the state of the connections are going to be maintained. Because of that, any request which is being permitted, automatically the responses will also be permitted. At the same time, any consecutive packets of the same permitted connection no need to be processed by the set of rules. You understand? So that's where the stateful inspection firewalls coming into picture. So basic filtering, packet filtering, proxy firewall, and stateful firewall, a stateful inspection technology. Now the point is the current technology, current filtering technology, what we use is called as next generation firewall. What is that next generation firewall? guys, you were working on the Palo Alto firewall. It is well known as a next generation firewall. If you see that Gartner's review, you can see that the Palo Alto is on the top quadrant. Now, what is the speciality of Palo Alto firewall? What is the speciality of it? Okay. Then proxy also does the same thing, right? All layers can be visible. What is so special in next generation firewall? See, as of now, the layer 3 filtering or proxy firewall or stateful inspection firewall, they basically filter the traffic based on the IP addresses and port numbers. Majority of the case. When it comes to the next generation firewall, it also inspects the traffic belongs to which application. What do you mean by that application? Now, see, earlier days, if you have an application, to access that application, you need to have a client. I'll give you an example. If you want to access the Facebook on your mobile, what are all the possible ways to do it? You wanted to access your Facebook using your mobile. How do you access it? Correct na? So using the browser, you can access that Facebook, or you can also have a client software being installed on your mobile device. Same way, earlier days, we used to have a separate client software for each and every application. Using a specific client, you have to access that application. Now, the point is, current scenario, after the introduction of Web 2.0, any application can be webified. Okay. Now, tell me, Facebook is an application or a website? Now, what and all you can do with Facebook? Can you chat or not? Chat is an application or a website? Can you play some games using your Facebook or not? Games or games or applications or website? So, Facebook, I hear some other sound also. Was there any response or any questions on that? Okay. See, what I mean to say that nowadays any application can be webified, and when it comes to Facebook, it's a collection of application. Can I say that? Okay. Now, because most of the applications in current scenario could be accessible through a web browser, instead of simply allowing the traffic based on the port number, which is TCP 443 or TCP 80, is not relevant and it is not efficient. Am I right? Though the traffic is passing through the browser, so it's a typical standard well-known port number, still I wanted to take control on what application should be permitted, what application should not. That's where one of the finest feature of next generation firewall called application ID comes into picture. Okay, ASA is not a next generation firewall. ASA FTD. Yes, it is a next generation firewall. The firepower threat defense. After the acquisition of SourceFire, they have integrated the SourceFire along with your ASA. They came up with a unified code called as FTD. You can do application based filtering on FTD as well. Yes, you can do that. Then, is that the only difference? Nope. Now, you can also identify the traffic is coming from which user. Instead of simply checking what is the IP address from which the traffic is initiated, we can track the traffic, we can track the user who has initiated the traffic as well. That's where the user ID comes into picture. So, application ID, with which you can identify the application passing through the general purpose browser, and we can also identify, we can also track down the user who has initiated the traffic. Along with that, you can also do the filtering based on the content, like URL filtering, like file filtering, like your inspections like antivirus, anti-spam. You can integrate many of these features. Immediately there will be a question. While we were talking about the different types of filtering technologies, I also told you that if all of these filtering technologies are going to be integrated into a single device, don't you expect that a delay on that? Because see here, let's say I'm just going to the whiteboard. Sorry. Let's say I have a single box, okay? I have multiple interfaces. Let's say I have one interface here and one interface here. As the traffic is received on one interface, the routing is going to be happening on the other interface, where I have various features have been enabled. I'm just giving you a simple diagram. When the traffic is coming in, before it can leave that, it will be passing through this, right? Sequentially, one by one, the process needs to be filtering the traffic. If all of the filtering techniques allow the traffic to pass through, only then the traffic can leave that device. Am I right? Now, see, one by one, if the traffic is entering to one of the functionalities and then it will go to the second and it will go to the third, obviously, the resources required for running these services inside the device needs to be increased, one. And as the packet is traveling through each and every service, there will be a noticeable amount of delay. So you have to somehow accelerate the functionalities, whatever you have enabled on the device. So now we have that one in the next generation firewalls, especially when you're talking about the Palo Alto firewall. One of the architecture, what is that architecture called? SP3 architecture. What is that SP3 architecture? Single pass parallel processing. So even though you have multiple processes filtering the traffic at a single time, we are going to be processing, we are going to be doing the screening on all of these applications. That's a different story. Anyway, we can do that one also, but keep in mind, we need to have enough amount of resources to run all of these multiple services on the single device. At the same time, the delay should also be reduced. Can we do that? Yes, we can do that. We can do application identification, we can do user identification, we can also do content identification and filtering based on that. Even though all these functionalities are implemented on a single device, it is not going to be causing any sort of delay as the traffic is traveling through it. You getting my point? Any questions on this? Any questions on next generation firewall? Okay, good. So, yes, please. Like I will say that, see, the SP3 is the name of the architecture developed by Palo Alto, but it doesn't mean that similar kind of technique is available with the other vendors. It is available, but it is not like SP3. They have their own mechanism. Okay. Okay. So any other questions on this as of now? ASA by itself is not a next generation. That's why we are coming up with FTD. Yeah. FTD is a next generation firewall. Along with this firepower, the source fire integration, we got this next generation firewall from Cisco. Right. So, nope. Checkpoint has introduced stateful inspection. There is a competition or argument which is going between FortiGate and Palo Alto with respect to next generation, who introduced the next generation first. So based on my understanding, based on my experience, I would say FortiGate is the first company that came up with the next generation firewall technique, but Palo Alto got its popularity. Anyway, from my experience, probably Palo Alto might be the first company, but based on my understanding, based on my experience on these firewalls, I would say that FortiGate is the first company that came up with the next generation technique. R80 onwards, it is next generation. Earlier versions were not. R77, until R77, it was not next generation. R80 onwards, it is. As of now, it is being supported. There are certain customers, they're still using R77. Slowly the migration is going on. Everyone will be migrating. I would say a small example. See, I was part of. What is it? I had Airtel SIM. Okay, I was using internet connection technique as a 2G. That time they have introduced a package called as Office 99. That means you just need to pay 99 rupees for a 2 GB of data. I chose that one because if I'm in office, I have internet connection. If I'm at home, I have internet connection. If I go to office, any other offices, customer places, I have internet connection. Why should I buy 3G or 4G? I was continuing with that Office 99. So over a period of time, they cannot simply pull me out or push me out from that plan. They have to convince me to migrate myself from Office 99 to 3G or 4G. What is the problem for that? See, just because a couple of customers are there who are using that 2G connection, they have to maintain that infrastructure also. Which one? That 2G infrastructure also. That is going to be costing a lot for them. They need to have a dedicated engineer. They need to have a dedicated space for that. The power consumption, the rack rental, all of them are going to be involved in it. So what they have done, they were talking to me continuously. I said, no, I cannot go for it because it is costly for me. Then finally they said, okay, we will give you 1 year of free access of 4G. Somehow they convinced me, and they migrated me from 2G to 4G. Right? So same way, still there are so many customers, still they are using the discontinued we can say that discontinued products. Even one of my customer is using Pix 501, and that to 501 very long back they have discontinued. The maximum operating system version can be 6, not beyond that. I think 6.3, maximum 6.3 you can go for it. Even 7 you cannot upgrade it. And that customer will simply say that when I'm asking to do some sort of migration or something like that, he will simply say, what is your problem? He well known to me. He simply asks me, what is your problem? The box is doing all the good work. Whatever I need, the box is giving. What is your problem? Why you are upgrading? Then after you say that after upgrading some of the features will not work, you need to buy the license. I don't want to get into all those crap. Let it work as long as it works. If something goes wrong, see, every year I'll get the payment from that customer. There won't be any single call even in any year as of now. But still he is simply saying that, okay, if anything goes wrong or if I have to do something, I will come to you only. Why you are worrying? You are getting every year payment. So like this, some customers are there. Yes. The question is why? Okay, now again I'm just coming up with another question. Packet filters, is that one of the oldest technology or not? Why people are using it? Is that being used or not? Still it is being used. Okay, IPS will do better screening or firewall will do the better screening? Okay, why don't we keep the IPS instead of a firewall? See, there are certain things. Depending on the place where these boxes are going to be positioned, we just need to identify the technology. For example, let me go to the whiteboard here. My perimeter router is there. Okay. Do you terminate the internet connection directly on the firewall? Yes, I can. I can do that. But what I'm doing here is I'm just taking the help of a router to terminate the public network. Behind the scene, I have this interface. This is where I have my firewall. Okay. Now this router is capable of doing this access control list, packet filters. Then I can do a stateful inspection here. Then I can have an IPS behind the firewall. What is the benefit of it? All the well-known IP addresses, right, the rogue IPs, I can block it here itself so that I can reduce the load for the firewall. Then the stateful inspection firewall will identify the genuine traffic according to its filtering criteria. It will come to the IPS. Now the load for the IPS is being reduced. Instead, I can remove this router, I can remove this IPL, I can put the next generation firewall here itself, because all of the functionalities can be done on the same device. Do you wanted to take that risk? You wanted to go with a single firewall where all the functionalities can be done? Sorry? Yes, yes, yes. I agree. I totally agree. I'm not at all denying it. So, you cannot simply claim, simply ask a question when it has been discontinued, when it is an older technology, why still it is being used? It has its own use at some places. One, right? See, I would say that earlier we used to have a device called as a VPN concentrator from Cisco. The main purpose of this box is only to terminate the VPN, nothing else. Right now, what they have done, these functionalities have been included in the firewall itself nowadays, along with SSL VPN. Earlier, this VPN concentrator is only responsible for terminating IPsec VPN. Now, all these functionalities have been implemented in the firewall itself. Now, the point here, what they have what they are saying is, you wanted to use the firewall or you wanted to use a VPN by a single device, but you can have a dedicated firewall for terminating the VPNs. You can have a dedicated firewall to do the filtering. Depending on the load and volume of traffic that you are expecting, decide whether you are okay with a single device or you wanted to have a multiple device dedicating the functionality on different devices. Like VPN, you take care of it. Firewall, the other guy will take care of it. The intrusion prevention, let other guy will take care of it. You have to take a call according to the volume of traffic and the requirement. Exactly. And one more key point is budget. That is also playing a very vital role. Okay. So, so that's the stateful inspection and next generation firewall. Okay. The third basic requirement is address translation. The network address translation, we have a detailed session on that. Okay. But still, as a definition, one of the address, the network address, why we are calling it as NAT, network layer address, is going to be translated from one to another. That's why we are calling it as network address translation. Why do we have to do it? There are two reasons. One, to hide your internal identity to the world, to the external world. Or if you wanted to protect the identity of your internal networks, then you can take the help of NAT. The second one is, you wanted to have the internet access where the private addresses are not routable. So you will not be able to receive the return traffic. So for that also, you can take the help of NAT. Anyway, we will be having a detailed discussions with respect to network address translation. Again, the fourth basic requirement is what? VPN, virtual private network. How do you define VPN? Okay. See, virtual private networks are virtual in nature. In what sense? Once the tunnel or once the connectivity got established, even though the networks are in two different locations, but they are virtually sitting in the same location. In that sense, it is virtual. Am I right? Same way, virtual private networks are private in nature. In what sense? Over the public medium, your data is going to be considered as a private. Of course, through the help of tunneling, through the help of encryption, authentication, all through the help of all these things, we will be able to make sure that our data is private over the public network. In that sense, it is private. Of course, in our discussion, our syllabus, I don't think VPN is there. Do we have VPN? According to the syllabus shared with me, I didn't note. Sorry? Oh, okay. Give me a minute. Let me open up. Okay, let me pass this. I think